So how many people today did not need an alarm clock to wake up? You just woke up naturally at the time you were supposed to wake up? Most of the time? You guys are getting your sleep figured out, but we actually will show you even how to go beyond that. But if you can't wake up naturally without an alarm clock, we're going to also tell you how to get a little bit more sleep in there. So sleep is the future of health. So when you look at chronic disease and what's happening with healthcare in America, over the last 100 years, healthcare has come a long way. We don't have to worry about diseases the way we used to. So the new sort of forum of healthcare is a lot of chronic disease, a lot of long-term health problems. And that is a broken system for what we thought we could do with doctors. So we go to a doctor for symptoms, and by the time we're showing those symptoms, we've already moved into that chronic disease and we already are manifesting that. So the future of healthcare really is not treating disease from symptoms. It's looking at prevention, on how we can attack that early on, look at how we can make our lives better, how we can have that health happen not only when we go to the doctor and have that pill or that solution then, but we have that health happen our whole lives. So sensors, wearables, and apps, that's going to be a big part of our future of healthcare. So if you see in the corner, there's your Apple Health, your Apple Watch. Apple's making a big commitment into healthcare. They're doing ECGs, they're measuring heart rate. They're looking at healthcare being at home, being able to talk to your doctor, send data to your doctor. Fitbit, their foray into it is through companies. So a lot of self-care companies are mandating that their employees wear Fitbits and track their health. Just in the Wall Street Journal earlier this week, there was an article about companies mandating that and how that works with privacy issues and how you manage that in the future. But healthcare has become such a big cost that it's really, really important that we're taking care of it. So companies are saying, if I have to pay the bill, you better be healthy. The next one on there is a glucose monitoring system. It's an app. So Kaiser Permanente just did a big study on the interaction of diabetes with app and being able to monitor at home. This particular app helps a diabetic train and work out at the peak time for them using their blood sugar as a way to promote better health. And they were able to, in the study, just by monitoring their food differently and being with them all day, they were able to change A1C numbers, not by 1 to 2 points like most pharma does over the course of a year, but in 3 months, change that by 2 or more points. So pretty significant for this preventative in-home care. The last one is an Oura ring, which I'm also wearing. The difference of Oura versus some of your other wearables is they're actually matching sleep tracking to a sleep lab quality kind of experience. So for the first time, you're really able to track your sleep. Your Fitbit, your Garmin, some of those other ones will track your sleep, but their sleep stages are often off and their percentages are incorrect. So this one's the first one that'll compare to a PSG or a sleep lab experience. So health and longevity. So one of the things we're going to look at for health is what does that longer part of our lives look like? So if we're generally healthy, right now Americans live on average to 78.69 years. It is a little bit lower than other industrialized countries. Most of that is due to an opioid crisis and not having great preventative care like we do in other countries. So we want to look at longevity. So Dave Osprey is one of our investors. He's also a biohacker. He wants to live to 180 years. So how are we going to live to 180 years and have it not be a miserable experience? So the blue zones are originally came up in a study by National Geographic. There's areas of the world in which living to 100 is actually statistically way higher than everywhere else. So these things that they do between diet, low stress, exercise, good sleep, good community interactions, all allow these special communities to live much longer than average. So longevity, is there a recipe? What can we do to make this the right thing for us? And I believe it's happy and healthy and multiply that times sleep. So healthy is good, and we'll get into what we look at for healthy. Happy as well, but all of that is better when you multiply it times sleep. So if we look at health, right now everyone will think diet and exercise. It's really easy to assume that those are equally weighted. They're not. Exercise definitely helps your diet, and it helps keep you in shape and helps your muscles, but it's not a strict ratio of those two together. Together, they can be 3x. So the real lion in the room is stress. We need to manage stress over the long term. So our bodies evolved to manage stress, thinking that we're having a lion chasing us. So when a lion's chasing us, our cortisol is released and our digestive system shuts down. All these sort of healthful things can immediately shut down because we're expected our arm to be ripped off or to have a major injury. So our bodies are resulting to this really different scenario. But now when we're in traffic, no one's about to rip our arm off. We don't need to shut down our digestive system. We don't need to shut down all those healthful things, increase our blood pressure. We don't need to do those things, but we're still emulating that amount of stress as if we're being chased by a lion throughout our whole day, and we're never really dumping it or getting rid of it. So stress is an important part of that equation. So when we look at happiness as a contrast, these are all metrics that go into that blue zone group of people. Family and friends, gratitude, and when I say gratitude, that includes meditation, mindfulness, whatever that spiritual part works out for you. And it really doesn't matter what religion you are. If you don't have a religion, meditation, mindfulness, gratitude is a universal thing. Biology obviously comes into it. Serotonin, dopamine, all of those normal factors of happiness are all part of that system, and we need to make sure that we're managing that and not just assuming what our hormones tells us is true. Purpose is a big part of that. So as we look at what is our purpose in life, do we feel good about what we're doing? Can we balance our stress because we feel like it's a worthwhile endeavor? It's an important factor to have as well. So as we look a little deeper into that gratitude, mindfulness piece, it really changes our brains. So that, again, it goes back to the chemicals in the brain are changed by meditation, by taking time to be mindful. And we need to try to do that at least once a day. And if you can do journaling or mindfulness in the morning and journaling or mindfulness gratitude at night, you'll change your stress index significantly and increase your lifespan. So sleep, what makes it magical and how does it work? So we'll go into a little bit about how does sleep work so we can understand that. The first part of understanding that is their circadian rhythm. How many people have heard of circadian rhythm? All right, so it's a 24-hour clock. Different hormones, different temperatures, different body processes happen throughout that day. During sleep is when your core body temperature drops to be the lowest. So it's really important that we're setting ourselves up for that optimal sleep time. And we'll get further into temperature later. But as you just look at, with that healthy clock, if at some point in there you're not dumping that stress, the disrupted clock is a big part of what happens. And if you look at the behavior of shift work, jet lag, aging, erratic lifestyle, stress is a big part of that. So if you're not able to mitigate that, you can see what happens to your circadian rhythm. So this is what a typical night looks like. I'm sure everyone's heard of REM. Light sleep, which is also not REM, but it's a little different category than deep sleep. Deep sleep is a slow brainwave kind of sleep. So when you look at what's happening, you get a lot more of your deep sleep at the start of the night. And one of the things to talk about with deep sleep specifically is that is the one factor that when you wake up in the morning and you feel rested, it is your deep sleep number that really reflects that. And as you get older, you get less and less deep sleep. So a healthy 25-year-old is going to get about 20% deep sleep. And as you age, an 80-year-old may get none. So when you look at that metric over time, if you're not getting deep sleep, you're missing out. So this is a typical night also from an app. This is through Aura. So a lot of times people look at the sleep score up there and they'll say, okay, 92, awesome. Why do I still feel tired? And that deep sleep number is a big part of that. So it's hard to see on here, but this person for their 7 hours and 45 minutes is still only getting an hour and 15 minutes. You really want to be about the 2-hour mark for 8 hours. And so their sleep stages look pretty and they've made it look good, but they're still kind of light on deep sleep. So the sleeping brain, all sorts of fun things happen during that. And over the last 25 years, we've actually started really studying sleep for the first time. Before that, we never really studied it. Even in medical school, it was a small little note at the bottom. So they weren't really researching it or discussing it. So recently, we were at an MIT Dream Summit and on dream engineering and sleep engineering. And the really fun thing is we're looking at how memories are made, how we can have better memories, how we can use sleep as a vehicle to have better memories, how we can use sleep as a way to get memories into our head. So if you're looking at language acquisition or better cognitive development, how we can use sleep to actually make that a better scenario. So if you lose REM and light sleep, most of that's a lot of depression, a lot of your Alzheimer's. If you have poor REM and light sleep, 80% of the time you'll end up with Alzheimer's. So the tie between Alzheimer's and bad sleep is really tight comorbidity. So deep sleep. So all sorts of fun things happen during deep sleep, as I alluded to. Your memories are stored and allocated. So what happens during the day is all of your information that you accumulate it's kind of put in a holding pattern in your hypothalamus. And as you sleep, it pulls it out and it kind of runs through and says, okay, is this going to be a short-term memory? Is this a long-term memory? Is this something I need to keep? And it decides how to file that. And so it'll go over the same memories for about a week to 2 weeks. And in that amount of time, it's going to be looking at what you're supposed to do. So memory is a big part of that. But as you look, most of those are also really tied to health. So healthy weight is affected with that. Your immune system, and we'll get into the cause and effect of autoimmune system disorders with lack of sleep. Your energy, your mitochondria, all those sort of things all happen during deep sleep. So if you stop having deep sleep or have very little deep sleep, you can see all the ways in which your body is not going to be the same. So when you look at sleep, it's a hub of health. All of those are sleep disorder symptoms, and all of those, you'll look at diabetes is an autoimmune disease. Obesity is tied. If you get one night of lack of sleep, you're going to eat 450 more calories the next day on average. So you're going to self-destruct yourself with that lack of sleep. Chronic pain also creates, when you look at that opioid crisis, you look at the depression crisis, all of those are all tied to poor sleep. The last one to tie it to, unfortunately, is higher risk of death. So when we look at the hazard ratio and what happens if you don't get good sleep, your chances of dying are about 15% more. So the last factor we're going to look at is genotype and phenotype. So genotypes, your genes are what you're born with. That's what your parents give you. You don't have a whole lot of choice in that. The phenotype, the reason I used flamingo is flamingos are born gray. Depending on what they eat, they'll turn pink based on the shrimp brine that they eat. So their genetics would say they're gray. Their phenotype, which is something they can affect, a physical characteristic, is that pink. And the reason why this is important is as we look at our health, there are parts of our genes that are going to dictate. So for most people, if I have a sleep disorder, for me, my family has stroke and high blood pressure as my genetic pool says that I have a predisposition to that. So if I have lack of sleep, that's probably going to be how it manifests itself. For someone else, it may be diabetes, if that's what it is, or obesity, or one of those other things. So it doesn't mean that if you don't sleep, you're going to get all of those, although there is a higher propensity to have more autoimmune diseases if you have lack of sleep. But your genetics do play a role in what that's going to look like. Everybody gets something. It's just geared by your genes. So if we go back to our longevity equation, I like equations. My physics is my background, so if you can put in an equation, it's more awesome. So 3 times diet plus exercise. For our happy, we're looking at gratitude minus stress because we want to make that stress go away. And we're going to multiply all that times sleep. And so hopefully I've made the case that sleep really does magnify and make that better. So tips for better sleep, what can hurt you, what can help you. I think it's really important that no matter what you do, you really sort of think about that sleep in your lives. Light, noise, temperature, alcohol, caffeine, all of those hurt and change your sleep metric. I encourage you to track, because then you'll have a better sense for your own body what those look like. What can help? Exercise, and I would also say with exercise, watch when you do that throughout the day. As we get older, we're more sensitive to exercising at night, and sometimes that'll keep us up. Magnesium, melatonin, lavender, valerian, all of those herbs are all ways in which to help, and definitely sort of read up on what it is. Most people in America, it's a crazy amount, like 65% are chronically low in magnesium and minerals. There's lots of fun ways in which to get that into your body, but that is a sense of disparity that most people don't even realize that they have. So go back to our circadian rhythm. When we look at it in terms of temperature, because that is our sweet spot, you can see that dip, and you can see the temperature dropping at night. And the thing to point out, a lot of people will see the 60 to 68 or 65 to 73. It depends on the doctor, it depends on the study, what that ideal sleeping temperature is. You need a picture that once you do that, you set your room, you've got it figured out, you climb under your covers onto a foam mattress, and then that cover insulates you from whatever that environment is. You are 98 degrees and you're going to heat up inside a furnace. So picture yourself a little pizza oven and you are the wood and you're stoking that little furnace. So whatever that temperature is, if you're someone that puts off a lot of heat, you're going to get really hot. That's why a lot of people end up kicking off the covers or trying to manage it that way. So thermoregulation is really fun science of what happens. We want to sleep thermoneutral to cold, and that is because our core body temperature really wants to drop. If you picture what's happening in the outside world, our circadian rhythm really matches that. We want it to get dark at night. We want it to get cold at night. So we're looking for those sort of triggers. If you have insomnia, 95% of the time it is manifested by a lack of that lowering of that temperature. So your body is not dropping when it's supposed to. So when about 5 a.m., when you want to be your coldest, we really need to be looking at what's happening under those covers. A lot of your foams, by the time you've gotten to 5 a.m., have absorbed your heat and are releasing it back. So your nice, comfy mattress may be sabotaging you as well. So ChiliPad and Uller, that is our product. So we started out the ChiliPad in 2007. We've brought lots of products to market. We thought that temperature was a really neat niche in the mattress market. No one was talking about that. It was the peak of Tempur-Pedic and Select Comfort talking about pressure. And we're like, well, you have climate-controlled seats. Why not have 2 different temperatures in the bed? Why not be able to just manage this? The fun part of what we discovered is that temperature has a bigger effect on the body than we ever imagined. Your hypothalamus actually has neurons in it that respond to temperature. And those are the little switches that turn you on and off to sleep, literally like a light bulb. So if you activate that with temperatures, either warm or cold, I can make you fall asleep. And so the manipulation and optimization of sleep really became possible in this non-obtrusive, non-pharmaceutical way. So it doesn't have to be interacting with all the other chemicals you may or may not be putting in your body. This is an unconscious way to be able to manipulate your sleep cycle. So after doing the ChiliPad for a while, we thought, well, we really need to be interacting with some of this sleep data that's out there. So that was the genesis of Uller. We launched an Indiegogo campaign, and Uller has an app, which Skookum has helped us out with. And so you can now schedule your sleep and be able to change that over time. ChiliPad is simple, and it has a remote. You set it like you would a traditional thermostat, whatever temperature you want, and then at the end of the night, you turn it off. Uller has a schedule. It's a little bit more like you would consider a Nest for a regular thermostat. It allows you to control that. So these are some of the results. This is again on Aura. As I said earlier, we really like the way they track sleep. But you can see that being able to change this. Now, one of the key things about sleep is everyone says, well, I can't sleep more. I've got kids, I've got a commute, I've got all the things to do in my life. How can I get really good sleep? It's not possible. I'm not going to get 2 hours. The difference really comes down to sleep density. So we have Delta Force, we have other professional athletes, jet laggers sleeping on this because they only get so many hours of sleep, but they still need to hit their deep sleep numbers. So one of the ways to do that is through that sleep manipulation of having you sleep cooler. And when you do that, you're able to still get your deep sleep numbers. So you look and see that they're less than 7 hours sleep, which puts them at a critical juncture for sleep deprivation, but they're still able to get that deep sleep number and mitigate a lot of those symptoms that come from sleep deprivation, and they haven't changed anything. All they've done is put it on their bed and have a chance to sleep cooler. So in general, to sum up, sleep is an amazing part of our lives. We tend to want to say, I'll sleep when I'm dead, I'll sleep later, it's not important. If you leave with nothing else, I hope you leave with the sense that sleep is really, really important. And if you don't invest today, similar to investing in your retirement savings or whatever, this is an important investment that you make every day. You look at it on a weekly basis and say, do I need to catch up? Do I need to make sure that I'm staying on track? And I really hope that you invest in your sleep for the future.